So, welcome to the next edition of the Rare Business Podcast. With me today, I have Liz Graham, who is VP of Sales and Service at Wayfair. Hi, Liz. How are you doing?
Hi, Adrian. I'm great. How are you?
I'm splendid, thank you. So, Liz, for the benefit of our listeners and readers, can you tell us a bit about you and also a little bit about the work that you do at Wayfair?
Sure. So I joined Wayfair in May of 2015, heading up our sales and service teams. We manage both the B2C sales and also all of our service for our customers at Wayfair, both in the U.S. and in Europe. And our team spans the whole life cycle of the customer. And I know we're going to talk about that. My background before Wayfair was focused on operations and technology, and early in my career I was a corporate attorney, so I've had a pretty wide and varied career, but always very focused on the customer experience, which is what drew me to Wayfair.
Excellent. Now, before we go any further, I wonder if you can just say a little bit about Wayfair, because some of our listeners and readers may not actually be familiar with them or with you and kind of what you do.
Thanks, Adrian. Wayfair is one of the world's largest online destinations for the home, with more than 7 million products from over 7,000 suppliers across 5 distinct brands: Wayfair, AllModern, Birch Lane, Dwell Studio, and Joss & Main. Founded in 2002 by Neeraj Shah and Steve Conine, Wayfair now has over 5,600 employees, with headquarters in Boston and offices throughout North America and Europe.
Thanks, Liz. That's really helpful. I wonder if I can go back to something you said earlier on. Just as an aside, because you're a corporate attorney, I mean, here's a little aside. I was just listening to a podcast interview. I think it was across on your very own sort of NPR, an interview with Herb Kelleher of Southwest Airways.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that he was a lawyer?
I did not. Wow, that's interesting.
There you go. So you should check that out. And for all the listeners, you should check out the interview on NPR with Herb Kelleher, because it's brilliant.
Excellent. I will do that.
Anyway, so back to you. So I've also, and Wayfair, of course. Now, I've been hearing a lot about some of the really interesting things that you do, and particularly some of the things around sort of melding together and getting the balance right between the kind of the human touch and how you use technology to deliver a great sort of customer experience. So there's a couple of things I really want to dive into, but first of all, I want to kind of start up with, this thing that really caught my eye. I mean, I heard that your recruiters traveled to a Comic-Con festival in Salt Lake City as a way of sort of to attract talent and sort of recruit talent. I mean, I'm not a big collector of comics, but I do hear a lot about kind of comics and Comic-Con, because I'm a fan of The Big Bang Theory, and they talk about Comic-Con kind of a lot, and I'm like going, oh, that's fine. And I know somebody who went to a Comic-Con out in the States a little while ago, and I just thought, wow, that's actually genius and weird and wonderful at the same time. And I sort of like going, what? And I just thought, God, I've got to know. Tell me about it. Kind of, why did you do that? What happened? And kind of, whose idea was it? Was it yours?
Yeah, no, I wish I could claim credit for it. It was a really genius idea. So we have a really diverse group of employees within the sales and service team, lots of different interests. And the Comic-Con timing coincided with our kind of peak hiring demands, getting ready for the holidays. And so the recruiting team was looking for venues to raise awareness about Wayfair and what we do and the types of roles that we have on our team. Mm-hmm. And so we decided to venture out to Comic-Con and just see the talent that we have. We also got tickets for the employees. They were very excited to attend, which was excellent. Uh-huh. And really the way we decided to approach it was to generate some interest in our sort of nascent social media recruiting. So we created a Facebook page. We got a character to stand in our booth and sort of pitched the Wayfair story, talked about our roles, and then offered people free pictures with this character, and if they uploaded them to our Facebook page. So we generated a ton of interest just organically from people engaging with us on Facebook, which helped us kind of amplify our message out there in social media land. But also it was a really fun and different type of recruiting event from the standard sort of job fair or postings. We got a high degree of engagement from our employees to come and talk with people, and also just a ton of crowd interest from it. And it was really sort of early days in our ventures into social media. We've now expanded that and created multiple channels that are under the handle Wayfair at Work,
right?
Which really feature different ways, different teams at Wayfair, different stories about people here. But this was kind of our first dipping our toe into how can we tell our story in different ways to connect with people who might not necessarily be out there actively looking for jobs, but kind of get Wayfair in the mix in their mind of like, wow, this is a different type of company. Not a lot of contact centers show up at Comic-Con to engage with employees or potential employees.
Yeah.
So we made it really fun and, got a bunch of interest, got some folks out of it into the recruiting pipeline at a time when we were really amping up our hiring needs. So it was just a really great success and a fun, different thing. It was, we just like to experiment with different ways to engage within the community. So this was kind of one example of how we try something different and see what works. And then, like I said, it sort of developed into a much broader social media initiative across the company to talk with both our employees and potential employees out there. Okay. So it's very cool.
So would you, in terms of the sort of talent you were able to identify, because I was thinking about this and trying to figure out why kind of, Comic-Con, and was it this kind of cunning master plan, and was it to do with you thought, well, actually there are going to be people there that are really passionate and quirky and interested about kind of different sort of things, and that's the sort of kind of people we're looking for? And was that, is that the thinking behind it, or is that just something that's emerged from it? And I guess more importantly, would you do it again?
Well, I think it was a couple different things. One was, there's not one model for who's successful at Wayfair, so we're constantly looking for different places to attract candidates, whether it's through things that they enjoy, like Comic-Con, or universities or other ways to recruit. Right. But we've also been starting to notice more and more that all of the easy work, or all of the straightforward customer questions have pretty much vanished and moved to self-help and my account. So the things that the team's, handling now are things that require sort of deeper level thinking and problem solving. And, I think the gamer profile in that space is classically known for people who are sort of problem solvers. So for us, it was an interesting path to kind of test this new thesis that we were working on in terms of how do we shift our hiring profile and how do we get people who can really think very independently. As I think, we don't have kind of scripts and guided directives for our employees and our front line. We expect them to kind of own and take charge and quarterback customer issues and resolve them. So we need people who are sort of resourceful and free thinkers. Okay. So it worked out well.
You said this is your first step, and then now you've kind of taken it into like the next level, because I guess the next level is one of the next things that I think you seemingly tried, and you've got this thing called Escape the Room. Now that sounds a little bit like, I don't know if you have the show in the States called it's like the Crystal Maze. Have you ever heard of that?
No, but I'll have to check it out. That sounds really interesting. So
it's a bit like kind of, you get one team of people and they get taken around this kind of castle and they get put in their rooms and it's people just got to figure out these kind of very physical and mental kind of problems, I guess. And they work individually, but they have advice for the team who are outside the room and things. But that's the kind of thing that came to mind when I read about the Escape the Room. But tell me about your initiative and how that's working, what it's meant to sort of do and uncover, as it were.
Yeah, so Escape the Room challenge, I had done with my leadership team when I first got them together in Boston back in October of 2015, and we had a blast, and it was a great teamwork challenge, but it also, what we found is it tapped into sort of lots of different strengths across the team. Some people are very abstract thinkers, some people are very tactile thinkers, and what that challenge presented was the opportunity to kind of see how everyone gelled together, but also sort of see how people solved challenges from very different angles of approach. So that kind of got our wheels turning, and then we actually kind of did it again when I was over in Galway, and we split the team into two groups, and we competed against each other. And there was a really good football match on that night, so there was some incentive to get out of the room early to go watch the match. But it was, it was just something that kind of started gelling in the back of my mind, that the type of people who were successful within our management team really enjoyed these types of challenges. So why don't we try, as we're opening up these new locations, try something different in the market, something that might get people really curious who might not otherwise be either looking for roles or might not know much about Wayfair, to come and have a very different type of candidate experience. And so what we found, from the recruiting team standpoint, was a really interesting parallel between what they observed in the candidates going through the challenge. And we're not looking necessarily for people to solve it. It's really sort of how they attack the problem and how they work together as a team and how they communicate. And really the skills that kind of pulled out of that competition aligned very closely with the final candidates who were selected through the interview process. So it, again, kind of just trying to tap into different ways to figure out people who have this kind of creative problem-solving bent and can bring that to our team. And it's, again, kind of shown to be a really successful, interesting path for us, to the point where I'll give you a sneak peek. We're now looking to create our own internal version of this. We have, as you know, a pretty expansive engineering team here.
Yeah.
And we like to build our own stuff. So we're now in discussions with recruiting and engineering and my team to kind of come up with our own series of challenges and puzzles and see if we can really even refine this a degree further. So more to come on that. We're just kind of really early stages, but this whole kind of series of events has sparked a lot of interest, and actually the internal teams were really psyched to kind of work on this as a project. So it's been great all around.
Cool. I mean, I think the other thing, I guess, on the flip side is that, I guess, for many candidates or many people that are applying for new jobs, it can be a quite nerve-wracking experience and quite a tense experience. And I guess you're also kind of flipping on its head, because you're giving the people the opportunity to actually kind of have fun and show their strengths whilst having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And employee engagement is a huge part of how we operate as a company. And we're very focused. We work very hard, but we also think it's important to have a fun atmosphere and great colleagues. And so, why not make the interview process and the way you onboard into Wayfair reflects kind of those core values?
Okay. So, I mean, that gives people a flavor of some of the sort of innovative and human things that you're doing, try and to identify the best sort of people, but also to bring out the kind of the best in your kind of people. But I also kind of know that on the flip side, we talked about this balance between kind of human and tech, but on the kind of the flip side, on the tech side, that you're doing some funky stuff around kind of predictive algorithms and how that's linked to helping your agents deliver, I guess, more proactive service and create a more proactive sort of kind of experience or a smoother customer experience. I mean, can you tell me a little bit about some of the things that you're doing and some of the problems you've been able to sort of fix and what's kind of driving kind of that in the background?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, especially when you look at the larger items that we sell, couches and large furniture for your home. Those are not simple items to move across the country or across the globe, and they often take long lead time, especially if they're custom items. From the customer side, there's some anxiety a lot of times with these products, buying it, without seeing it or sitting in it, and because of all of these different areas in the process where things could possibly go wrong for a delivery for customers, we worked with our very intelligent data science folks to take a myriad of inputs from our customer history, our supply chain, our delivery network, and really sew together the key pieces of the journey of something being delivered to customers. And then if we see something going off course versus plan, it gives us the opportunity to intervene and reach out to that customer to discuss alternatives. So, let's take, for example, something ends up getting delayed in transit or potentially, misplaced, and it's supposed to be 3 boxes, but we can only identify 2 of them with certainty. So at this point, we reach out to the customer and say the customer isn't aware that there's necessarily something going awry at this point in time, and say, hey, here's the situation. We have 2 of the 3 pieces of your dinette set, let's say, and we can continue to move those forward to you and look to expedite the 3rd piece, but the 3rd piece may not get to you for another week. Is that all right? Let's say the customer has an event coming up, and that's not all right. They absolutely need something by a date certain. At that point in time, we might intervene to say, okay, well, while this other piece is in transit to you, we could ship these 2 other chairs overnight to you. It won't perfectly match your set, but at least it'll get you chairs for your dinner party on Friday that you were expecting, while the other ones, eventually get there. And when you get your final set, you can donate those to a local charity for their use. So just, trying to anticipate what alternatives might be suitable for the customer and really talk through with the customer. Some customers are totally fine with, 1 week doesn't make a difference here or there to them. They're fine to just wait the extra time for it to arrive, and they just appreciate the notification that there might be a delay in the final piece. But then other people have an event or something that they're really trying to get their Wayfair order in time for. And in that case, we'll really, try to be as resourceful as we can to come up with alternatives for them.
Okay. And I guess I've got 2 questions on that, I guess, is one is what's the sort of the business kind of, what have you seen as being the business benefit behind taking that more of a proactive approach? And then I guess the second question is that feels like a little bit of heavy lifting, and I guess the proactive agenda has been around for a while, and a lot of the time that people don't do that because they get this idea, or they have this idea in their head that it's quite a heavy lifting approach. And so my question would be, does it, in your experience, does it scale?
Yeah, those are both great questions. Let me tackle the first one. When we rolled out this algorithm, we did A/B test it, so we had a series of kind of control orders with the same indicators, but where we didn't intervene, and then the orders where we did intervene. And what we saw, Adrian, was a 23-point increase in NPS. So we measured Net Promoter Score for our customers. For those customers who received the proactive treatment versus the control group that did not. So we were very confident, even though it was a controlled test and not sort of a network-wide launch, that having this type of intervention would really vastly improve the customer experience in these types of cases. And by and large, the vast majority of our deliveries and orders go without a hitch. So we're talking about, that smaller group where something is going wrong. So to your second question about scaling, in my mind, it's less of a question of scale and more of a question of time shifting. Do you wait until you've totally inconvenienced the customer and they don't have a solution, and now you're kind of backing up against, a bigger problem? Or do you say, okay, let me get in there and try and solve this where I may still have time to really help this customer get what they want and still meet the timelines that they're looking for? So you're going to deal with the issue no matter when you decide to tackle it. So why not get out there and say, we know things are going to go wrong. It's a complex network, and problems happen occasionally. Damage happens occasionally. So let's get in there and tackle it proactively, try and help this customer get what they want, rather than wait for the customer to be frustrated and annoyed with the delay and potentially have something that no longer is useful to them because we missed a birthday party or something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, thank you for that, because it actually kind of just there is that kind of question around sort of scale, but you're actually saying it's actually not a different level of effort. It's just kind of when the effort occurs along the timeline, I guess.
Yeah, and one piece we do, I think, a little differently than many other companies is we do have this ownership model. So if you're contacting that customer, you own that problem from cradle to grave. So you are the sole point of contact for that customer. You give them your phone number, your email. They know how to get in touch with you. We, of course, have backup things for people who are on vacation or other ways. But, I think that's another piece that customers really appreciate is knowing that you have an advocate on the inside of the company who's really working with you to get this fixed as soon as possible for you. And that's the piece I think that sometimes maybe when we're talking about scale, folks get a little nervous about because, you have a single point of contact. Well, how does that really scale? But I think that's where kind of our technology comes into place, and we can design routing rules and things like that a customer who has large item that has already been delivered, we route them directly to the large parcel team so that they are immediately in touch with these experts who can help them with any questions they have after they get their item. So I think that's where you just need to kind of balance this human and tech environment and say, all right, I want to create a personalized ownership model to help my customers. So how can I build the technology around that helps me deliver that without a lot of brute force?
I mean, that's kind of fascinating because it brings me on to what I was going to ask you about next, in terms of, so you've got this balance in terms of, you talked about your technology and how you've built up the self-service. There are a lot of the kind of the repetitive kind of questions get handled through self-service, and then you've got this kind of proactive kind of model which allows you to get in front of some of these kind of problems. That's helped by your kind of predictive analytics and so on and so forth. But it's also kind of sound like what you've just said there is that actually you came up with if you like, you imagined what your future experience could and or should be like, and then you figured out how the human element and the technology element plug in to enable that, rather than it being driven by anything like technology, for example. What you could do, it's almost like you're sort of flipping it on its head and saying, actually, this is what we want to deliver. Now let's figure out how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're never done on this stuff. So, we're constantly trying to, change how we tackle things, design different teams to help customers. Should we be focusing on, different segments? So one of the things on the sales side that we haven't talked about is some of these items where there's a lot of customer interest on the web. So you may be browsing around looking at technical lighting or flooring because your local store doesn't have a huge selection, or couches, appliances, and Wayfair has this enormous catalog with 7 million SKUs, but that's a lot to kind of digest. So what we've done on the sales side is taken a couple of the categories that are more in the highly technical arena or the see-touch feel, like your upholstery, and staffed a team of specialists to help customers with these kind of more challenging products. So, and the fun thing that we've done on the recruiting side, so let's take technical lighting as an example, or plumbing, is we've gone out and looked for electricians and plumbers and other people with kind of deep knowledge and expertise to join our team to really help on the front end answer customer questions, make sure they've got all of the components. If something isn't kind of kitted out with everything they need, really talking them through, oh, you want to get that track lighting. All right, let's make sure you get the transformer, and let's make sure you get this and that, so that when you make your final purchase, it's it's the full package, and you're not kind of going back and saying, oh, I missed this. And sometimes customers, I take myself as an example. I don't know necessarily all the pieces that I need to get for a plumbing installation or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I could use this team, and they have a dedicated contact information. Again, it's sort of that concierge model where you call in, you speak with Cindy, and Cindy becomes your sales expert to help you through. Customers use this team for renovations. If you're doing a bathroom reno, you have a lot of different things that you're trying to pull together, and maybe you're using a contractor, or maybe you're just kind of trying to do it yourself and do it economically. We found an interesting difference in our customer profile as we were experimenting early on with this team. Is we had a core group of customers who are very experienced DIY people, and what they really needed from us were questions answered around products that could meet their budget and products that could meet their timeline. So we didn't spend a lot of time educating them on sort of all the pieces that they needed to get. They already knew everything that they needed to get. What they were trying to do was sift through the information that we had to figure out what can get to them and the timing that they needed, and what could we assemble for them that would help them work within their budget. So the team sort of flexes to the audience and what those customers need.
Okay. I mean, it's fascinating. Two things that kind of that stand out for me on that is that one is that it seems like you're constantly learning about how different customers and different customer kind of needs, particularly around the sort of the DIY, and they're like going, well, I sort of know what I want and I know what I want to pay for it, but actually the killer is like, can I get it in time? Because this is my schedule about finishing this room, and so helping them to shop in the way that serves their needs and their outcomes, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have, some cool features on our site. One of the things called idea boards, where you can actually help a customer build different. So let's say you like things in a modern style. Mm-hmm. If you contacted me at Wayfair, I could build an idea board for you that's like, okay, here are very modern bathroom fixtures in these range of price points. And then I could share that with you so you can sort of browse a more curated list of our products, and then sort of ultimately make your selections off of that. Or, you can just talk it through with the person on the phone, but sometimes people want to take a little time. They want to evaluate different things. They want to talk with, some other decision maker in their family about what they're doing. So having these different tools at our disposal to help customers with the considerations that they have for making these big purchases. A lot of these things are longer lead time, so you might want to see some samples. Mm-hmm. If you're buying tile, what color is that yellow? Is that tile very shiny, or is it more of a matte finish? So, or with upholstery, getting a fabric swatch to make sure it matches your room. So it could be the first conversation is really just ordering a bunch of swatches and samples for the customer. So then they could come back and say, all right, well, I prefer these, and this is what I'd like, and this is the finish that I want. Or I like that yellow, but you have something a little brighter. So it's a good way to kind of engage with the customer and narrow down the choices.
Yeah, it sounds like you mentioned concierge sort of thing, but it sounds like almost like your old school sort of DIY painting and decorating furniture sort of like store where you can go and get all your samples, and it's like full service but online.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're really striving for, is to create an environment. We've certainly been successful at generating a lot of repeat business from our customers, and a lot of that comes down to brand trust. Do you have a good experience with Wayfair? Do you feel like you're getting, clear and transparent information? Do we have the product quality and selection you're looking for? And all those things are very important. And, you can just skim our site and see that we cater to a really broad range of tastes and price points and styles. And when you shop for your home, it's an intensely personal experience. So I think having someone that you can talk with and reach out to, and you have their email and you can kind of develop this dialogue is really important in making those big choices.
Excellent. So That all sounds very exciting. So, what's the what's next for Wayfair? What's the next big thing or the next big challenge for you guys?
Well, the thing that's got me personally the most excited is what our engineering team has been doing in the augmented reality and virtual reality space. Again, one of the challenges with buying things online is the see, touch, feel. How's this going to look in my space? Is this the right dimension for that wall? And so they've developed a series of apps to allow you on the augmented reality side to sort of simulate what our products would look like in your space. So that's there are a couple out there. There's View in Room or Wayfair View. If you search on YouTube, there's a really cool video where essentially it's almost like a drag and drop. You're looking through a tablet at a blank wall in your house, and you can pull a couch into it or drop a pendant light from your ceiling and actually see what it looks like in your space. Rotate it, line up a bar stool against your bar counter and see if that height works for you. Some of these things are, you can measure them and you can kind of step away and say, all right, I think I know how high that's going to be, but to actually kind of visualize it in this highly augmented way, I think is really cool. And then they actually had another more immersive kind of virtual reality. Think more like a game. It's a patio scene where you can kind of manipulate these models that show up in your image as like actual lounge chairs or grills, and you can hear the birds chirping in the background and the trees and everything. It's very immersive, and you almost take the goggles off and have to sort of readjust to reality. I'm fortunate to have the 3D lab right around the corner from where I sit, so it's fun to pop over there and kind of see the latest stuff that those guys are dreaming up. But that, I think, is really transformative. It's no longer kind of e-commerce. This is really what people want to be able to sit in their living room and shop in a way that helps them see, like, how's that armchair look next to my sofa? And you can do that now with what our team's developing. So that's got me the most excited.
Cool. That's like bringing the shop into the room.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, with all of the kind of your experience, I mean, I must say that you guys, I guess, you're on the leading edge of some of this. The technology. What with, how you're attracting and recruiting new people, how you're using kind of like some predictive analytics, how you kind of put it all together to make your service a bit more proactive, and then experimenting with new tech like VR and AR and so on and so forth. I mean, I guess my question would be is if you were looking back and you wanted to give other leaders or executives or people listening to this podcast or reading the notes some tips around some of the biggest lessons that you've kind of learned around how to amp up or move your service and experience kind of forward. I mean, what are the big things that you've kind of learned, and what would you advise kind of people to do to push their service on?
Well, I think one of the things that Wayfair started very early on, which has just influenced how everyone thinks about customer service in the business, is that when you started at Wayfair, you were talking directly to customers. I mean, our two founders, when they started the company, they were coding and they were taking phone calls from customers. And then the next 5 employees who joined were doing exactly the same thing. And so we've built this company from the ground up where everyone who comes in, regardless of kind of your strength, gets very close to the customer experience. And our teams launched a lot of careers within Wayfair, so you can find folks in the data science team, folks in the finance team, marketing, category, all these different teams who had their start in customer service. Right. And so I think at the heart of it, kind of having that mindset that listening to the customer, understanding that conversation, hearing the pain points and how you can solve them really just informs the business. So I guess in terms of advice, I'd say find ways for everyone in the company to feel an equal amount of ownership in delivering on the customer experience.
I think I would shortcut that and go spend more time on the phones talking to customers and helping them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we set up sort of periodic listening sessions here in the Boston office for people who want to just hear what customers are saying on the calls. And we have teams where people can come and double jack. We'll send around chat transcripts and things like that, so people can really understand what our customers are asking and talking about.
Perfect. So that brings me to my last two questions, and the first one is I guess a little bit selfish, but that's kind of fine. I'm going to indulge myself. I published a book last year called How to Wow. It came out by Pearson. And what I've been doing since the book has come out, and everybody I've talked to on the podcast, is to ask them for their perspective on what wow service or experience means to them.
That's terrific, and I'm now going to dig in and see what other people have said. But the thing in my mind that really stands out is taking the time to understand the customer. And for example, if a customer is calling in and saying they want to return something, don't just go straight to, of course I can take care of that return for you. Here's how to send it back, blah, 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 blah. You really want to probe for understanding that customer's not looking to return something. That customer was buying something from you because they needed something, and maybe they needed a chair. And so there's an opportunity to really understand how you can actually get the customer what they want in that situation. And if you go straight to just speedily resolving whatever the customer asks you for, you're not really understanding what they need. So one of the things that we're doing right now is another sort of little experiment is infusing more probing and sales techniques into our service teams so that we really spend the time to truly understand what the customer was looking for and why our product didn't solve that need. So we actually have a team that in their initial training about a month ago kind of went through a full amount of sales probing technique training together with their service training, and we're seeing really great early results from that team, just having that extra layer questioning and probing for understanding, not trying to sell, but really trying to understand what that customer was looking for and why didn't that item really solve it for them. And so taking the time to listen to the customers, I think our efforts to develop a personal relationship with our customers, one of the things that makes me unbelievably happy is when customers email our employees pictures of their Wayfair purchases in their houses. Like, that's incredible, and it just gives me chills every time I see it.
Perfect. So that brings me to my last question, Liz, that I always ask people at the end of these podcast interviews. And the question is this: is there anything that you would like to shamelessly plug?
Well, thank you for that opportunity. We did touch on it a little bit, but I really think what we've done with these concierge sales teams is incredibly helpful for our customers. And I would advocate that anyone listening to your podcast take advantage of reaching out and talking with these teams, even if it's a relatively modest purchase that you're looking to do and not a full renovation. They really are expert and can certainly steer you through our large catalog. They also handle our new registry, which launched in the summertime last year. So any brides or brides-to-be out there, you definitely take the opportunity to work with our team. We have an enormous catalog that can really fill out a lot of people's registry needs, and these concierge teams are handling that initiative too. So I think it's an excellent customer experience.
Well, thank you for that. I'll make sure that gets all kind of linked out and give your concierge teams a big shout out. But Liz, I just want to say thank you for your time and for sharing your insight and your experience. That's been kind of great. I mean, I just love some of the cool and funky and different sort of things that you're trying, both on the tech side and also on the employee side. I think it's a great story, and just want to say thanks again for sharing your time with us today.
Thanks so much, Adrian. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you, and I'm fascinated by this space and really have been enjoying listening to other podcasts that you have out there. So it's equally interesting for me to hear what you're discovering out there in these conversations. So thank you.